What's up, movie nerds and basketball geeks? Welcome back to Movie Ball. I am wearing my Knicks jacket again, this time with a shirt underneath, so it's zipped up, we're all good, nothing to worry about there, you won't have to see my nips. We are on part 2 of my Eastern Conference standings predictions. We are now tackling the postseason makes, numbers 8 through 1. If you missed the first video, the link is in the description as always. I guess why would you be watching this if you missed the first video? I'm sure if you're subscribed, you've watched it. Well, probably not. I get like 5 views. But this is for like new viewers, potential new viewers. I'm trying to advertise my shit. So, click that link. Let's get to number 8. The Atlanta Hawks. A lot of people aren't going to like this one. Maybe a lot of people will. I don't know. Who cares? It's my pick. And although they are extremely young, I do think the Hawks will get a taste of that postseason life this year. Trae Young is only going to get better in just his second year, something like 22, 23 points a game, 8 or 9 assists. John Collins will also improve in just his third year. These guys are looked at as the leaders of the team, and I know it's crazy because they're young, but they have that hunger, and with that presence of Vince Carter, they should all be able to lead these first-year players into focus. Yes, I understand it's a little crazy to immediately suggest such an inexperienced roster could take a leap of faith into the playoffs, but this team won about 30 games last year. Who's to say they can't just win 10 more games? With an improved Trae Young, John Collins, and Kevin Huerter, as well as the experience of players like Parsons, Turner, Parker, and obviously Carter, I really can see this team surprising people. The good. This team has all the potential in the world to not only improve, but start building their chemistry and finding their way into the playoffs this season. The bad is that it could all come crumbling down pretty fast. Lloyd Pierce has not been a head coach long, and they have 3 rookies that look to be a part of their rotation, and they will obviously come with their ups and downs. Finishing as the 7th seed, I've got the Detroit Pistons. A lot of people want to underestimate the Pistons, and while I don't think they're a juggernaut team or anything, I do think they are a skillful unit. This is a team that managed to keep the main components of its roster that just got them into the playoffs last year while slightly improving, so I don't see why everyone wants to immediately write them off again. Like I said, I understand that they're not that great. If Blake goes down with an injury, which is like the most possible thing in the world to happen, then they're completely and utterly fucked, of course. But I'm not taking these injury and health concerns into account or anything like that. Looking at this squad, they're noticeably thin, a problem that they continue to retain from last year. However, they did get someone else that can put the ball in the basket with Derrick Rose, but of course he's an injury liability as well. I wouldn't rely too heavily on Luke Kennard taking a big step up either, and Sekou Doumbouya, I hope I said his name right, I have no idea. He's probably going to be a big work in progress, but he does have potential. Overall, here's the good. This is a team with a lot of postseason tested players and a superstar in Blake Griffin. They got another scorer in D Rose, which they desperately needed, and Andre Drummond remains to be an elite rebounder. The bad, I wouldn't hold my breath on this team being healthy. They've got 2 of the league's most widely known injury-prone players in D Rose and Blake Griffin. It took Blake Griffin being healthy all season last year and having a consistent rhythm of dominance, being an All-NBA player just for the Pistons to make the 8th seed. So I understand that there is some hesitation with putting this team in the playoffs, but this is still basically the same team intact. Landing in at number 6, I've got the defending champions in the Toronto Raptors. This is the first team in the Eastern Conference that I can confidently and completely say is a good team. They kept all of their integral pieces other than Kawhi, which is good enough to be a good team, but probably not good enough to get out of the first round. In my eyes, this team's success heavily relies on the rise of Pascal Siakam. If he continues to be the guy he was last year, which was good, they're just an 8th seed. But with Kawhi leaving, that does create a huge gap in the offense, so he needs to be that 20 and 10 guy that a lot of people are projecting. This team has got really solid veteran players that are no longer what they once were. I'm talking about Kyle Lowry, a former 20-plus point per game scorer, Marc Gasol as an all-star two-way force, and Serge Ibaka as a prime defensive player of the year candidate. At this point, I'd say they're all really good role players. Outside of Siakam, though, the rest of the team is pretty blasé. The loss of Kawhi was huge, but no one talks about Danny Green. I'm sure Van Fleet will get a lot of run at the 2 and potentially even start there, but they are pretty shallow at that position unless Norman Powell steps up. I don't know if I would count on him or Anunoby really stepping up this year and evolving, but I do like Hollis Jefferson. I'm a fan of his defense and his game, and if he can stay healthy and stay on the court, I think he can contribute to this team. The good is that this is a good team. They just won the championship, they have that pedigree, they have that full-on experience now, and Siakam should take his play to an even higher level and get the Raptors to a top 6 seed. On the bad side of things, this is an older team that will rely on players that are mostly just shadows of themselves at this point. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Toronto blew it up at the end of the year or even mid-season and traded away players like Gasol and Lowry for future pieces. Coming in at number 5 in the Eastern Conference, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Had KD been healthy or even returning mid-season, I could talk myself into a second seed placement or something like that, but that's not the case. Kyrie is the lone all-star, but with great pieces around him, just with very little playoff experience. Aside from DeAndre Jordan, and if you want to count Joe Harris, isn't that crazy? Joe Harris won an NBA championship in Cleveland with Kyrie, and he was just like not utilized. He was not part of the rotation at all, and it's just kind of crazy because like now he's like such a great shooter. He just won the 3-point shooting contest, and he's a good player. Like people know him, and it's just like wow, like he could have really helped the Cavs. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. They won, so who the fuck cares? But what I'm saying is this team really isn't playoff tested other than last year. This is very interesting for Kyrie because he's essentially stepping into the same situation as he did with Boston. Yikes. Replacing an all-star point guard and getting integrated into a system with players that already have chemistry and that are trying to evolve their game and get better, such as Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert. But obviously it is different as well because Kyrie chose to be in this situation. He didn't get traded there. And he already had, obviously the whole plan was to contend with KD once he's healthy. It's a little scary because it is literally up to DJ and definitely Kyrie to help lead this team and get them comfortable so they can be in an even better position once Durant returns. This is an exciting team though with a good foundation. A fast-paced and player-friendly coach in Kenny Atkinson should get along with Irving, and Durant claims it's a big reason why he signed here as well. Taurean Prince is a very solid 3-and-D player that's also a new addition and should help space the floor nicely. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of the DeAndre Jordan signing. I like him and I do think he's valuable for a lot of teams, including the Nets, but I think it would be a pretty moronic idea if they plan on giving him more minutes than Jared Allen. He would serve as a fantastic mentor to Allen, but he shouldn't gobble up all of his minutes and stunt his growth. I don't know what exactly they plan on doing with that, whether they're going to have them split minutes evenly or what, but obviously it does bode well for the team in terms that they do have an additional rim protector and more depth at the center position. And obviously Karis LeVert, he's a player that is young still, and he's going to continue to develop. We'll see what he does. He was almost an all-star last year before his unfortunate injury, so it will be exciting to watch. So when it comes to the good, they've got a roster with chemistry and a ton of shooting as well as rim protectors. Kyrie is a top 15 player in the league, and KD is top 2, so when he returns, they'll just be scary. The bad is that they don't have KD, and I don't know if I can pick them to make it out of the second round just yet without even seeing them play. Kyrie is their leader, and we just saw what that was like in Boston. That's very scary. I would be worried if I was a Brooklyn fan in that regard. I think that, he's stepping into this situation. I think he's like, yeah, I'm going to do better, but we don't know. What we know is what we just saw last year and the year before, and it's just bad. It's the bad. Finishing as a top 4 seed, I've got the Indiana Pacers. Last year, the Pacers were great without Victor Oladipo for half the year, so why would they be any different? They've only improved their roster, and eventually, Oladipo will return. Yes, it sucks that a freshly dominant two-way guard in Oladipo won't be playing half the season due to his unfortunate injury, but let's focus on the positives. They gained a pretty stellar supporting cast to match with their already well-balanced team. After losing Darren Collison and Tyreek Evans, and of course missing Oladipo for some time, the Pacers got a good slew of guards and scorers to fill in the gaps. TJ McConnell is certainly serviceable, and whether or not he'll start in Oladipo's absence is another story, as there is actually a lot of question marks around this team's rotation, with and without Depot in the lineup, but Malcolm Brogdon was a Rookie of the Year who just had a 50-40-90 season, yes, on less attempts, but still impressive nonetheless. He has a chance to really progress this year. I'm not so sure either if the Holiday brothers will get much run, but Jeremy Lamb is a great spark plug to get you buckets when you need something. And TJ Warren, who the Pacers finessed the Suns for like nothing, this is an extremely underrated player who can step in, get you 18 to 19 points per game. He immediately replaces the absence left by Bogdan Bogdanovic. This is a man that has trouble playing in over 50 games a season. He is a very, very injury-riddled player, and that's unfortunate. And he used to be like a career 22% three-point shooter, which was also alarming. But suddenly last year, out of nowhere, he shot 42% from three. He upped it by 20%. So I don't know if that was a fluke season or what, but if he can sustain that, the Pacers are going to be in really good shape. Unfortunately, Indiana didn't really get anyone to replace the departure of Thaddeus Young, unless you play TJ at the 4, which is possible, I suppose. But the front court duo of Sabonis and Turner has proven unsuccessful when they play together, which is a real bummer because they're both really gifted players for totally opposite reasons. Turner is the athletic and defensive manifestation that Sabonis needs to be, and Sabonis is the post scorer and bucket getter that Miles Turner has the potential to be. But we've been waiting for that offensive breakout from Miles Turner since like his second year, and although I'm not saying it won't ever happen, it just seems less and less likely as the years go on. I like both of these players a lot for different reasons, like I said, but they both need to be played at the 5, and I just think it's about time that Indiana explores trade options for one of them. It just depends what they value more, and I would imagine that Turner is more important to them based on his ability to protect the rim at an exclusive level. His defense is Defensive Player of the Year candidate like every year at this point. He's very good, and it's easier to find someone that can get you about 13 to 15 points a game like Sabonis, who's a great player, like I said, but they just need to find someone that's perhaps, smaller, more athletic to play at the 4, someone that's a better shooter. If they traded like Sabonis for Kevin Love, that might be like a perfect fit. I know Kevin Love isn't exactly athletic and he's older, but I think it would work out for both teams, something like that. Here's the good. The Pacers are building towards becoming a title contender within the coming years. They have a good defensive squad, and they're in a much better position offensively now that they've gotten more options to do some of the scoring. It's not just Oladipo and Sabonis. The bad is that even though they'll manage pretty well without him, Victor Oladipo will still be missing half the year, and that's missing an all-star on both sides of the floor. Turner and Sabonis don't really mesh well together, and they don't really have a clear answer for the exit of Thaddeus Young. Now moving into the top 3, we've got the coveted Boston Celtics. This is a very interesting team because with all of the drama that happened last year and all of the juice that just surrounded the team, and now that Kyrie is gone, I'm sure it's a huge sigh of relief to both the players and fans, but even with him gone, I'm not sure if the Celtics are going to be better this year because of it. Look, basically they got Kyrie back in Kemba Walker, the same model of player that is a shoot-first point guard that has excellent handles. The only difference is that Kemba has much less postseason experience than Kyrie, and, it might be a new scenery, so it could be weird adjusting to it, but he should adjust much better than Kyrie did because he chose to be there, and not only that, but he's played with his teammates, a lot of them, in the FIBA tournament. But this team's got a shit ton of question marks, so let's look at the depth chart. They're not very deep and almost completely hopeless defensively. Enes Kanter is in no way, shape, or form replacing Al Horford, but he is another offensive option. Tatum's defensive potential is there, but as of now, he's a lackluster defender. Jaylen Brown is pretty good, and Hayward used to be good, but there's just so much camaraderie between this roster for good and for bad. They've got exciting young pieces in Brown and Tatum, but will they butt heads trying to score, and will that clash with a possible resurgence in Gordon Hayward? The good is that it's the Celtics, okay? They always find a way to be relevant and make things happen. Tatum is going to step up, and hopefully Brown does as well as a possible comeback for Gordon Hayward. The bad is that they'll be piss poor defensively. They're a front-loaded team with a lot of younger guys filling out the rotation, and I just don't have much faith in them making it past the second round. Yeah, my dad just brought me back Taco Bell. What am I going to do? Let it get cold? My camera's low. I have to record, so we're going to make both of these things happen at the same time. As the second seed in the East, I've got the Philadelphia 76ers. This was a tough one for me because I could easily be persuaded that they would be a first seed team, but I just kind of go back and forth between these two teams. It's a little tough, but this is a team that is contending with the best starting lineup in the league. So fucking good. They're huge. Ben Simmons, Josh Richardson, Tobias Harris, Al Horford, Joel Embiid. That's scary. They don't even need anyone else. What's the point of even looking at the depth chart? We're not gonna. No, let's look at it. Page flip. The Sixers have done a much better job at filling out their roster. While they are still more top-heavy, they have a serviceable bench. Sorry, I'm chewing. Trey Burke is inconsistent, but as a Knicks fan, I've seen his Iverson-like flashes, which will obviously never turn into anything more than just a pipe dream, but he's shown the ability to score and distribute. The Sixers' young guys all have potential as either shooters, scorers, or defenders, with Matisse Thybulle hoping to show some kind of promise. Mike Scott is okay, and Kyle O'Quinn is also pretty capable of being a backup center. It doesn't matter too much because the bulk of the minutes are going to the starting 5. Losing Jimmy Butler had good and bad to it, and losing J.J. Redick was a bigger loss than Butler in my opinion, but they were able to replace him with someone that can shoot the 3 ball well, not as good as Redick, but shoot it really good and also defend, which Redick couldn't do. I would probably choose the Sixers to go to the finals, okay? Like, Simmons and Embiid are just going to get better, and they got the fucking Embiid stopper in Al Horford, so he's going to help them in a lot of ways. I mean, the only person that can stop Embiid now is himself, like, with his health issues and all that shit. Here's the good. This is the best starting five in the league, and they also have a functional bench this year. I fully expect them to contend, and they had some losses, but I think they replaced them with players that matter even more. The bad is that you always have the health issues with Embiid, and Horford could make for an awkward fit at the 4, but they should be a good duo. But the other problem is that we just have to figure out who is going to be the fourth quarter guy, the end of game scorer. I would imagine it's going to be between Embiid and Tobias. That leaves the top seed to the Milwaukee Bucks for being the first team in the Eastern Conference. You know, like I said, you could persuade me that the Sixers could get that first seed, and I think you could flip them back and forth, but it's hard for me to bet against the reigning MVP and someone that just has a perfectly built roster around him that obviously did exceptional last year. Giannis is out for blood. Chris Middleton is still an all-star sidekick. Eric Bledsoe, although awful in the playoffs, should be a reliable two-way member of the squad. Brook Lopez spaces the floor. He's still going to give you that shooting. And Wesley Matthews is a good addition. Decent enough replacement for Malcolm Brogdon. Let's not forget they also got Kyle Korver, a shell of his former self, but still lethal given the right minutes. The man was literally an all-star one season for shooting. Robin Lopez is a great addition alongside his brother to do the more gritty and dirty work, and their entire bench is honestly pretty deep. They've got Giannis' brother too, so if he manages to be good, it's like, fuck. Nikola Mirotic should have been perfect for them last season. I don't know what the hell happened there, but either way, they're in a good position. Once again, Giannis is obviously a superstar, and you've got shooters and defenders all around him, so they're gonna do some good things, and that's the good. The bad. Bledsoe could burn out once again and regress earlier in the season. Brook Lopez is injury prone, which could lead to some problems on their center side of things. And, you know, we've seen it with the Warriors. It's hard to replicate success of a team when you win 60 games to continue that dominance. And it could be challenging, but, you know, they haven't won that championship yet. That's what their ultimate goal is, so they should be hungry, and Giannis will keep them more than afloat. That's my Eastern Conference. Feel free to comment below what yours would be, what your rankings and your records for these teams would be, everything like that. You know, let me know. It's looking back at the end of the year, you never get any of this shit right, like hardly, because there's things you'll never expect. There's things that you just never see coming, you know, trades, injuries, shit like that. You just never know. So smash that like button. You know, Smash Mouth. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on. Go play. Who am I talking to? Zach LaVine. I don't know. He's the first name that popped into my head. I hope he's an all-star this season. I would sing that song to him if the situation ever presented itself. But yeah, smash the like button like Smash Mouth. You know, I don't know what the analogy really means, but it has smash in the title. Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kinda dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. Well,